Officer will explain you exactly which activities are funded, because at the end of the day, we know that as researchers, the funding is a key element. So you will have all the information about the funding schemes and the funding activities. In order to conclude this journey through cost, we will have a chance to have a presentation by a cost representative and action chair, Dr. Ariel Thomas from the University of Malta, who's going to explain what his action is about, but also his role as an action chair and the benefit of participating in a cost action. We will close the session by a Q&A session. So now I will give the floor to Dr. Ronald De Bruyn.
Good morning, everyone. Let me make sure that my screen is shared. Maybe my colleagues can give me a thumbs up or down whether that is the case. It is the case. So here we are. It's a great pleasure to deliver an introduction about cost. We are with more than 1,000 participants today. I think this is really marking the interest of the community. I saw people from very, very far places in Europe, including Ukraine. I also saw participants from Jordan. So I think that we are appealing as a cost program to many communities that are in Europe and beyond. So just in, let's say, an introductory way, I would like to give a quick explanation of the mission, our vision of where we want to go, and our strategic objectives, just to position cost a little bit. So the core of our mission is that we provide networking opportunities. We do not fund research, but we bring researchers together to form networks on topics of common interest so that you can have meaningful exchanges with your peers in all domains, completely bottom up. We do not just want to be a funding organization. We also would like to support you throughout your journey of 4 years in the cost actions. We call this stewardship. We try to empower you, which means that we try to put you in your strength to deliver that. And my colleagues will go into details about the ways of supporting. Now, what we would like to do first and foremost is to promote, but also to spread excellence. We very much want to foster interdisciplinarity, and I think we are managing quite well. And last but not least, we really want to make sure that young researchers, the next generation, receive an investment from cost. By the way, we have 42% of our community under the category of young researchers. This means up to the age of 40. From a geographical point of view, the Cost Association is an intergovernmental organization with members. And here you see a map with the members of COST. We use a different color code to also categorize different types of members. So the one in dark blue means that we have South Africa in this case as a partner member. Full members geographically have to come from Europe, but any other country outside can also apply to become a partner member, and then they commit to put some money aside to reimburse the participants themselves. Israel, cooperating partner, and then in the full membership, you see 2 different types of colors used, one in purple and one in green. The one in green are countries that have less research intensive, let's say, ecosystems and infrastructures and capabilities. But that does not mean that there's no excellence. I always say that there are plenty of pockets of excellence everywhere in Europe, and it's our challenge to connect. And then, of course, the ones in purple are supposedly the countries that are more research intense, also in terms of public investment. Now, to give you an idea, our networks, and we call them cost actions, we have about 300 of them running. They typically organize conferences and training schools and short-term mobility, or we call them short-term scientific missions, with an average budget of 180 now, €1,000. I just have to click back because I wanted to highlight that we currently have around 60,000 active participants in those networks. Now, how does it work? Just in a nutshell, we have an open call. Once a year, we empty the bucket of proposals. And of course, these proposals have to start first with an idea from a main proposer. In this case, we have a Portuguese main proposer who joins up with secondary proposers to submit a proposal at cost. Once the proposal is approved, our national coordinators in each of the countries involved are nominating people who may not even have been involved in the cost action to participate in the management committee. So that makes cost very easy to enter. It doesn't stop here. You can also participate, let's say, in the cost action without being nominated by your country in the management committee. You can, for example, participate in a working group. So there are more opportunities to engage in a running action in which you have not even been part of a proposal or not even part in the management committee. So that makes cost not only excellence driven, because our proposals are predominantly selected on the basis of excellence, but at the same time very inclusive. So in short, cost is really focused on inclusive excellence. Now, that's of course in line with our first strategic priority, as I just mentioned. I just wanted to recall them. Now, if we look at promoting and spreading excellence, you can look at it from a different perspective. On the left side, you see a green color code used, where the dark green color or the darker the color green, the more in absolute terms researchers from that particular country are participating. If you look at the map on the right, blue color code, the darker the color, the higher the percentage of the national community that participates in cost. So, for example, in Cyprus, I think almost half of the research community participates in cost. Malta, you see the Balkans, you see the Baltics, for example. So that means that in effect, everybody benefits. Now, cost has its full membership, and I just mentioned that a moment ago. But we also have a category of what we call near neighbor countries, indicated in green on this map. As a matter of fact, last week I was in Cairo to chair a meeting with representatives from the Northern African and the Crescent countries. We had representatives from Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, of course, Palestine, Jordan, Azerbaijan, around the table. The countries here indicated in orange is basically the rest of the world. And the thing is that cost is so open, we allow also participants from other parts of the world to participate. But because the budget, of course, has its limitations, the participants have to organize the funding to participate in another way. Regarding interdisciplinarity, so here we mean that we receive proposals with at least two different scientific disciplines. This conceptual representation reflects all the disciplines and the cross connections as a result of the proposals that we receive when emptying the bucket at the closing date of the open calls. So there's plenty of, let's say, disciplines represented, and it only grows when new people are coming to the action, when they are nominated or volunteering themselves to join the cost action. Just a little bit about young researchers. So here you see a demographic, let's say, distribution according to age, and you see that young researchers up to the age of 40 are very well represented, both in the so-called inclusiveness target countries with less developed research and innovation infrastructures, as well as all the other countries. In terms of the gender, let's say, balance, we see that the inclusiveness target countries are doing even slightly better. And this is due to the fact that we have quite some interest from, let's say, female researchers from other parts of Europe, but also in the North African sphere. I met many female researchers last week. As we speak, we have around 50% of participants that are female researchers, and the share of female researchers that are in a leadership role is even a little bit higher. I think it's 52% or so. So in terms of gender balance, cost is very well positioned. We take some specific measures for young researchers to support them in terms of training under the umbrella of our Cost Academy here at the upper left corner. We have special modules. We have leadership trainings, for example. On the right upper corner, you see that we also organize dedicated events. We have a cross-cutting activity. So that is the only, let's say, top-down network that we as Cost put in place. It's not based on a proposal, but based on a policy decision by our governance. We organize specific Cost Connect events where we bring young researchers together. Going to the left lower corner, you see a list of networking tools that we have specifically geared towards young researchers. So the idea is that first and foremost, we should have at least one young researcher or innovator in a leadership position in the cost action. We also promote this to the actions to do so. We monitor this. We see, of course, the participation levels. We carry out impact assessments on career development. As a matter of fact, 85 of the participants in general indicate that by participating in cost, their career gets a boost. And we have all different kinds of external, let's say, communication activities where we put young researchers in the spotlight. Now, in terms of funding tools, we have introduced this year specific conference grants for young researchers. And this is put in place next to another type of grant that is focused on ITC. So we want to be more inclusive for areas that have less research-intensive ecosystems, as well as the young researchers. And then we measure our success by putting in place a couple of KPIs. So this all reflects, I think, our commitment to boost or to empower young researchers in our networks. I already mentioned gender balance in cost. We have actually a conscious approach. We have a gender equality plan, and cost actions, in this case, for example, are expected to monitor the gender balance, to invite underrepresented groups. That can also be the other way around, by the way. Some actions have more female than male, so we talk about balance. They must have a gender equality advisor. They have to develop their own gender equality plan, for example. So without going further down the list, this really shows that we are also requesting the cost actions to actively make a contribution. Now, more information can be found on the cost website, where we have published more about the gender equality plan of cost. So far, I only talked about networks, mostly at least. Here you see a conceptual model where in the center, you will find the typical networking tools that are in the toolkit that we provide to every cost action. So starting from the left in the center, actions can organize meetings or workshops or conferences. And here the conference grants I mentioned a moment ago are included. So this is connected to funding, organizing training schools, short-term scientific missions. That's a mobility scheme that allows you for a short while to go abroad and to benefit from an infrastructure or laboratory, for example, that you may not have, or to engage with a research group that is inspiring you to advance in your research, dissemination activities. And we are also unique in the sense that we have a 100% virtual mobility grant. Now, around that core, let's say, set of tools, we organize activities ourselves. So this is not the cost action, but ourselves in Brussels. Training opportunities are provided for those who have leadership responsibility. So if you are, for example, a grant holder or a working group leader or a science communication coordinator, you'll find specific trainings for you to advance your skills and to apply that in the cost actions in a serving way. Cost Connect events, so I take you to the bottom now on the left, are events that bring several cost actions together, focused on a topic that is high on the EU policy-making agenda. And we also invite other stakeholders in those events, and we will reinforce that a little bit in a more structured way in the coming period. I just wanted to mention one more, the Cost Innovators Grant on the top left. An action with innovation potential can apply to explore this potential further, with the idea to, after 1 year, and this add-on grant of 1 year is indeed geared to producing a business plan with a subgroup of the action. And also here, the grantees receives extra training on how to write a business plan, how do you go about intellectual property right, how do you pitch this to an investor, and maybe even to other follow-up schemes. For example, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology or the European Innovation Council, just to name two, but there also are other opportunities. So this is cost in the core of what we offer, but also value-added services. Now, cost actions are completely bottom-up. We do not prescribe any thematic thing or anything that you should work on. And so we have to also look at, what is eventually the impact? And this overview here illustrates, it's not fully exclusive, but illustrate the types of let's say, impact. So I start from the bottom. When we talk about actions that bring researchers together, they often find partners to submit publications. Co-publications are more or less the rule now. Seldomly in splendid isolation, the publications are written, and so the productivity also increases. And we have done a robust study carried out actually by an external party university that shows that you are 55% more productive in terms of co-publications than if you would not participate in a cost action. I think it's quite significant. At the same time, you can also meet others with whom you would like to submit a proposal in other parts of the work program, or in the framework program, I should be very correct, of Horizon Europe. And here we looked at the previous framework program, Horizon 2020, and we asked all the actions, well, how many proposals did you actually submit? And how many of them were successful? And it appears that 39% of those proposals submitted were indeed successful. So that triples the success rate, the average success rate in the framework program. And the total sum of all these proposals amount to about 450 million of approved spin-off from ending cost actions. Already mentioned research careers, 85%. Feels that cost participation has boosted their career. And last but not least, at the level of scientific or societal impact, there are all different kinds of discoveries and breakthroughs and developments of new infrastructures or new standards, new kind of technologies and services that come out. So this shows you a little bit the idea of what a cost action can actually imply. Let's see. Now, this is just one other way of showing, let's say, the follow-up potential. So if you take 60 cost actions at every year, and they have a potential of about 5.8 million spin-off funding per action, and the total sum per year is 2.6. For the framework program Horizon 2020, that's a period of 7 years, is 2.6 billion. And the total budget for the cost program itself was in the order of magnitude of 300 million. So you can also calculate that €1 spending cost almost generates 10 times as much in terms of follow-up funding, irrespective of all the wonderful things that happen in the program itself. So with that, I think I've given you a first introduction to cost, but I'm absolutely convinced that you would like to know, how can I participate? How does it work in practice? How do I submit? And that is going to be revealed very quickly now by my colleague. So thank you so much for your attention, and I really do hope to see many of you walking through the door here in one of those cost meetings. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Ronald, for your presentation, and good morning to everyone. I'm very happy to see so many of you joining from all corners of the world. And as our director explained, you just received an explanation of the framework and what cost association does. So this session will provide you with some practicalities on how to become part of a cost action. So basically, cost actions do not focus on research, as it was mentioned, but what we do is we create the space for participants that during 4 years, they have a platform in which they meet and discuss their research ideas. And in this way, we make sure to increase the impact of their intervention. So what we do in cost actions is we have research coordination objectives and capacity building objectives, and we work towards these objectives during the lifetime of the action. Each action receives on average 680,000 euros over their lifetime. And in order to start, as we will see also later in the eligibility criteria, they should have a minimum of 7 countries participating, but we usually see that since the start, there's a huge number of countries participating in the proposal, on average 34. This is important because it shows that the contribution for a certain action comes from many, many directions. And we sign a memorandum of understanding with all these sections from the start, in which we set out these 2 kinds of objectives that I mentioned, the research coordination objectives and the capacity building objectives. So this is a structure of a cost action. As you can see there, you have the management committees. So the management committee is the highest decision-making body of an action. So this is the group of people who decides on what kind of activities will be included for each grant period, which is each year of the implementation of the action. And these are representatives nominated by their countries. So each full member and cooperating member in cost have the chance to nominate maximum 2 representatives in the management committee. And then you have the action chair and the action vice chair. These are the people who coordinate the activities and the action. And then you have the grant holder institution with the grant holder scientific representative. This is the institution that physically receives the grant from cost in order then to manage it and administer it by providing reimbursement for all the participants into the network in the networking meetings and tools that the action organizes. Usually an action has 3 to 6 working groups. So the working groups is where the real work is carried on. The working groups address one of the objectives of the action, and they have activities to implement. We will see in a bit what kind of activities, and through these activities they aim and or target the objectives of the action. Then there are also the horizontal groups, and here we talk about the science communication coordinator or grant awarding coordinator. These are the people actually who provide increased visibility for the action, but also increase of opportunities for the action participants. So if you will see publications from grant awarding coordinators, make sure to read them very carefully, because there are opportunities for you to participate in an action. And then circling all this structure, let's say, is the cost association administration. Us who make sure to provide all the needed support for the action to implement their activities with great quality. So what kind of activities can an action implement actually during their lifetime? You see here a list of networking tools, and we can divide them into 3 main categories. There are meetings, mobilities, and then dissemination and publication. The meetings are management committee meetings, as you can see in the slide, or core group meetings, working group meetings. We also include workshops and conferences in the meeting modality, and training schools. It means that during a grant period, an action can select what kind of meetings are better fit to achieve their goals, and they can select from this pool of tools. And then there are also the mobilities. Here we have the short-term scientific mission, the acronym STSM. You will see and hear a lot in the cost information or presentations because it's one of our most popular tools. This is basically an opportunity for researchers to go and spend a period of time in another country at another host institution in order to advance with their research objectives. So STSM is one of the most popular mobilities, but then we also have presentations at conferences. The first one is the Inclusiveness Target Country Conference, which basically provides a grant for participants from inclusiveness target countries to go and present their work in conferences organized by third parties, high-level conferences. And the grant has changed a bit this year. For the ones that have received this in the past, you might know that it was only dedicated to young researchers. Now it's open to all researchers from inclusiveness target countries, no matter of their age. And then we have a new tool which also targets young researchers, and this is called the Young Researchers and Innovators Conference Grant. And as the name entails, this is a grant dedicated to young researchers, no matter of their affiliation. Of course, they should be part of a country that is eligible to be to get reimbursement or financial support from costs, but they can go to a third-party conference and present their own work. And this can also be an oral presentation or a poster presentation. So these are the conferences. We also have dissemination conference grants. This is a grant that is a bit different from the previous ones that I just mentioned, because this grant is dedicated to promoting the work of the action or the action itself. So an action participant receives a grant to go to a third-party organized conference to present what the action is doing or to present the action results. You also have the virtual mobility grants. It's the same as the other grants that I mentioned, or mostly the STSM, but is conducted in a virtual setting, so the person does not have physically, does not need to travel to another destination or another host institution. They can have this experience online, and you receive a grant in order to carry out with the objectives of this grant. So we mentioned the meetings, we mentioned the mobilities, and we have another element here, or a networking tool, that is called dissemination. So above all that we offer, we also give all the actions a chance to raise awareness on what they're doing, increase visibility of their results, but also be out there for other people, researchers, innovators, to know what they're doing and also become part of their great initiatives. And this is under the element of dissemination. Here we provide funding for the website. So each action normally should have a website to be transparent on the activities that they're doing. But also if they want to use promotional videos or the publication, which is actually central to the action's work, the costs for all this are also covered in the grant that Cost Association provides to different actions. And as we're talking about publication, there is an added opportunity for all Cost Action members. Since November 2022, we have a memorandum of understanding with Open Research Europe, which is the European Commission's platform for publishing. It's highly relevant, and we offer this for free, and it's free of charge for all members who are action members. So of course it has all the rules that normally a publishing house has. So your submission must be original, not published anywhere else. But in our framework or case, it should stem from a cost action. Just for you to know this as an information, there will also be an information session from COS beginning of March dedicated to this. But this is a complementary to what COST offers. So we also have our own budget provided to the actions that they're free to choose where to publish. Of course, it should be a qualitative publishing platform. That's out of the question. But this is an added value that they can make use of. You find more information if you visit their website, which is at the bottom of this slide. How can you engage with the cost action? We heard so much about what cost does in Europe and also beyond Europe, but what are the capacities that each of you can be included in a cost action or in cost activities? You have three options or opportunities. You can be engaged either as a participant in a running action, as a proposer of a new cost action, or as an expert to evaluate our proposals and also the ongoing work of the actions. These are not exclusive, so you can either be in one of these capacities or you can be in the three of them. So opportunities are really big for everyone. What to do? So let's say that you are really loving this presentation, you really love what COST is doing. So how can you engage? The first step to be a participant in COST actions or in our activities is to check your eligibility. We have a new tool in our website, which you can easily find under the tab of funding, and it's called Am I Eligible? So this is not a binding tool. It doesn't mean that the results you will get by making use of this tool will really make you a part of the action, but it provides you with a very good understanding on what are the activities for which you are eligible to participate in a cost action, if you are eligible to get reimbursement for participating in these cost actions, and if you are eligible also to submit a proposal, so to become that person who then acts as a catalyst for bringing all these researchers together. I have made here an exercise. So I chose an inclusiveness target country. You will be asked two things when logging on the Am I Eligible tool. First of all, your country of affiliation. So it means the country where you work or your institution is legally registered, the institution you work for, and your year of birth. Here we have the example of someone participating from an inclusiveness target country and who is a young researcher, which means under 40s. And as you can see in the results, this person is eligible to join cost actions as a working group member, to join the management committee as a representative, to participate in all the networking tools of the actions, which means all the meetings, training schools, be eligible for all the grants that the actions offer. But it's also, of course, eligible to submit a new proposal and act as a main proposer. Again, this is not a binding tool, but it provides you with a very good understanding on your eligibility. I have done another exercise, and here we don't have a inclusiveness target country, but a full member of COST. And the person who has tried the tool is above 40 years. And again, it provides very good list of what are the capacities in which you can participate in cost actions, as you can see there, as a working group member, as a management committee member, and then all the tools that you can participate. And again, you can also be a proposer of a new cost action. So make sure to try this out because it's the first step towards understanding what involvement you can have with cost actions. Let's say that we tried the tool and then the result was that I am eligible to participate in a running action as a participant in these three capacities, as a management committee member, as a working group participant, or as an ad hoc participant, so a short-term, let's say, participation in an action. What shall I do? If you're eligible to join a cost action as a management committee member, please contact the COST national coordinators. So each member of COST has assigned a COST national coordinator who are people that work in the research agencies in their countries, and they are the ones who nominate members for the management committee. You can find all the names and all the contacts of your COST national coordinators on our website. If you check at who we are and who is who, you will get a list of full countries and their contacts. If you are eligible to join COST as a working group participants, then you should contact the working group leader. If you are eligible to participate or receive a grant, then you should apply for that grant. How to do these two that I just mentioned? First of all, we advise you to check the actions very, very carefully. So each action has a dedicated page on the COST website, and on their page, you will find the Memorandum of Understanding, which is sort of the plan that the actions have decided to determine what kind of activities and objectives they will carry during their lifetime, and what is the impact that they expect, and what is the structure of their action. And this will provide you with a very good understanding if your research background or experience matches with the action, because only in that way you can provide a better support and a more qualitative engagement with the actions. So browse the actions website, read carefully the memorandum of understandings of the actions. Usually all our actions also have their own websites, which you can find on their pages, that you can read more additional information, and then you can identify the opportunities to participate. How do you do that in practice? You go to our website, cost.eu. On the tab Cost Actions, you will see a tab named Browse Actions. So you should, of course, click on that tab, and then you will get a list of all the actions that are running for the moment at cost, which I believe are around 290 actions. So it's lots of opportunities. And then all these actions are in different fields. We, of course, encourage multidisciplinarity. So most of them will also be in more than one field. But as you can see here from a very simple search, you might find actions focus in medicine. You see here brain cancer, focus on economy, circular economy, social issues like radical polarization, and I'm just naming a few. But if you find an action or a title that you think it's interesting and it's very close to what your expertise and experience is about, then please click on that title, because you have an opportunity to become a working group member. We get this question quite a lot. Why should I be a working group member, and who is in fact eligible to become a working group member of an action? A working group member can be all individuals who are affiliated to a legal entity anywhere in the world. So even if you're not part of the full members of COST, cooperating member, partner members, or any other country, you still are eligible to become a working group member. But the problem is, because we have full members and a membership, we have some other criteria for eligibility to receive financial reimbursement for your participation. So make sure when you apply that you not only have, let's say, you are eligible to participate, but also to receive a financial contribution, financial reimbursement. Working groups are the places where actually the work is carried out. As I mentioned, cost actions have objectives, and these objectives then are performed by or met by the working group work. So it's really, really important to become part of the working groups. Just think of it as a huge research center, or your research unit, let's say. If at your research unit you receive feedback on your papers, on your orientations for the research that you do by 6 or 10 people, cost actions, because of the huge number of researchers that they have in certain fields, provides you with the opportunity to receive not only feedback on your work, but also get to know what the others in your field are doing, increase the impact of the work that you're doing, and forge networks, or let's say collaborations with people who are key in your fields and who can also help you progress in your work. So it's really a platform that aims at building capacities of researchers and increasing the impact of the work that they do. So for that, it's really important for you to become a working group member. If you are eligible to become a working group member, and all of you are, as I mentioned, because anyone can be, then you just go to the page of the action on COST website. You have a tab there, working groups and membership, as you can see on the upper side of the screen. And then you have a button to apply. You can easily apply. You will be asked to fill in 3 simple sections. If you already have an eCost account, then you will get to choose your working group preference, so which working group of this section you want to join. State a short narrative about your scientific background, your motivation, why you want to join this working group, and your contribution. So what will your contribution be? This is of key importance because membership is not by default. Of course, all actions set their own criteria for their working group memberships, but of course they're open and inclusive because these are the two principles that we also keep them accountable for. But they will need to know what will your contribution be and why you are someone who needs to be part of this section. So make sure, as I said again, to read well their MOU and to draft well your applications because you increase your chances for becoming part of this working group. Usually in the action details, which is the tab that you see on the right of the screen, for the actions who have a website, you will also get the website link for you to check more information. So let's imagine that you are already a working group member, or you have put your application for a consideration to become a working group member. It doesn't matter because you can still apply for grants that the actions offer. Grants are the networking tools that I explained earlier, which include the short-term scientific missions, so STSMs, and also presentations at conferences. As you can see here, you have a list of networking tools and grants that someone can apply for, but not everyone can apply for every grant. The first thing that I wanted to clarify is that it doesn't matter if you are a working group member or not of a certain action. If you are eligible to get financial reimbursement from cost, you can still apply for the grants even if you are not a working group member of a certain action. But the grants that you can apply for depend, of course, on you, which means if you are a young researcher below 40s, then you will also be eligible to apply for a young researcher and innovator conference. If you are from an inclusiveness target country, then you will also be eligible to apply for an inclusiveness target country conference. And you will get this view based on your situation. So if you fulfill all these criteria, you will get the maximum networking tools or grants to apply for. But this might not be the view for everyone. That's why I needed to explain. And my colleague in a bit will also explain all the modalities for each grant, which means the amounts of grants that can be given to a grantee. All you need to know is identify the grant opportunities, identify your eligibility, and then once you have an ECOS profile and you log in through your ECOS profile, you also have a tab, My Grant Applications. If you click on that tab, you will get the chance to apply for different grants. They're based on competitiveness, of course, so more qualitative your application, better chances you have to apply for a grant. But different actions have different criteria for awarding grants and different timelines. So please make sure that you have read a call for grants that the action has issued, and they can do this in different ways, either by checking their website or by following them on their social media channels, in which they also publish all the opportunities that the action offers. And once you have done that and you have made sure that you have identified an action which is very close to your expertise and you are within the timelines that the action has set for grant applications, then you can progress with applying for a new grant. So this was the explanation for the modality on how you can participate in a cost action as a participant, be that a long-term participant, working group member, or a short-term participant, which is an ad hoc participant as a grantee. Now I will explain the second modality in which you can become part of a cost action, which is being a proposer of a new cost action. So these are the people who submit a proposal, which if it's successful afterwards, then you will be in a leading position in the action and have all the opportunities to implement activities to sort of really catalyze all your network of researchers and provide opportunities for all researchers in your field of expertise. What you should know about applying for a new cost action is that it's a one-stage online submission, so it's only done online through eCost, not sent via emails or anything like that. You should have in place one main proposer who is the person that sort of drafts the application, but also invites a group of secondary proposers to contribute to increasing the quality of this application. They should focus on excellence, as we mentioned, and of course, they should focus on networking. So why networking is the right tool for this idea to thrive or to be impactful. Our next collection date, which means the deadline for you all to submit your applications, is 21st of October 2025, 12 o'clock Central European Standard Time. We usually approve up to 70 new cost actions, and you can, of course, find more information on our website, and we will go through all the application procedure one by one. The first thing to do, as with all the other participations in cost actions, is to create a eCost account. So you can easily create it on our cost website, and then you should be able to see a tab named Open Call on your eCost profile, proposals, and create new proposals. So with these three simple steps, you can start drafting a new proposal for submission for a new action. The proposal has four main sections, which some of them are pre-filled, but most of them should be filled with information from the proposers. And these are the sections, so general features, technical annex, cost excellence and inclusiveness policy specific objectives, and the network of proposers. We will go one by one and explain what they contain. So for general features, this is the view that you get once you create a new proposal. Of course, it will require some details, such as the main proposer institution, the title for your cost action or a candidate for cost action, and the acronym, and then keywords. You will also be required to write a abstract or a short description of what this proposal is about. And then you will also be required to specify which are the areas of expertise that are needed for evaluations. And as you can see there, we have an example from a certain science field, health sciences, for example, and the research area. So it has to be specific, health services or healthcare research. Why this is important? Because I will also explain a bit later, this is very important for the evaluation of your proposal. Because what cost does is that we will match the areas of expertise and the research areas that you have set in your proposal with those of the individual experts that we engage in order to sort of carry out an evaluation process for your proposal. So once you've done this, then you're ready to go more in depth into your proposal, which means filling in your technical annex. The technical annex is the most important part of a proposal because that's where you will express your ideas and your proposals, and on which basis you will also be evaluated. If you go to COST website under documents and guidelines, as you see there, you will be able to check a facsimile of a technical annex. So what are the fields that you need to fill in? But if you start a new proposal, so you opened an ECOS profile and you start a new proposal, then you will also be able to download a template in Word of the technical annex, which afterwards you have to convert into a PDF and submit as part of the proposal. But all these instructions are provided at the start or at the beginning of the Word template that you will download. So what are the fields or the sections that someone needs to fill in? There are three main fields, excellence in science and technology and networking. And here, a certain proposer has to specify what is the main challenge that they are addressing, what is the state of the art for that challenge for the moment, and what will they bring in order to advance the state of the art, and why networking is the best approach to advancing with this idea, how they will create a critical mass of the network, how they will make sure to have the right people represented in their network. And then the second section is impact. So what kind of impact you are expecting to have in different levels, be that in the research community, in society, or also in academia, but most importantly, in society. So we want to see actions, implement activities that do not closely focus on research or academia, but have an impact in society, because at the end of the day, that's what we are all working for, to change things that are not as they should be. And then the third section is on implementation, in which proposers should really specify what is the action that they, the structure that they propose for this section, and then set a work plan with tasks and deliverables. And they're also free to really include images or a Gantt chart to make it more comprehensive for the evaluators. Templates is very, very important, as I said, not only because it's one of the eligibility criteria, but also because it changes throughout different calls. So if last year there was a certain template that we put in place for the proposals, it might have changed this year. So please make sure once you submit a new proposal, the first thing is make sure to have the right template in which you are writing this proposal. And we will also on our side make sure that you receive enough signals that you are using the right template. Then in the application, you will also have a section which you have to fill in on cost excellence and inclusiveness policy, which mainly is a narrative on how you will make sure that you will have a geographical balance in your application by focusing on a balance with inclusiveness target countries and non-inclusiveness target countries. Age balance, so what are the measures that you will have in place in this section to encourage more participation from young researchers? And the gender balance throughout its activities, how you will make sure to maintain gender balance in order to give equal opportunities to both male and female researchers. This is also important for another component, which I will mention a bit later. But the last thing that you should have in place before submitting a proposal is your network of proposers. Once you have opened a Nikos profile and you have started a new application, you will also receive the chance to invite other researchers to become part of your network of proposers. This is also very important because, as you can see there, the eligibility criteria are that in the network of proposers, there should be a minimum of 50% representation from inclusiveness target countries. So you will get the chance to track throughout your application procedure how many people that you have invited to act as secondary proposers have accepted your invitation and are already part of the network of proposers. The most important eligibility criteria is anonymity. Throughout the content of your technical annex or the proposal, you should make sure not to have any direct or indirect reference either to the main proposer or the network of proposers or their institutions or any other detail that can bring the evaluators to disclosure of the affiliation of the proposers. Please make sure to read carefully your proposal before submitting, because there is a certain percentage of proposals that are non-eligible throughout our calls because of anonymity. Of course, the idea is that you show that you know the projects very much and you have the right people in place to qualitatively implement these cost actions, but make sure to do it in such a way that the evaluators have no reference on who can be behind a certain proposal. Eligibility criteria, it's also peaceful purposes. Of course, we only support those proposals that focus on peace and peaceful purposes. And the format, as I mentioned, which is the format of the technical annex. So this is also a very important eligibility criteria. It should be written in English, British English, American English. It's not a problem as long as there is consistency throughout the proposal. And then once submitted, your proposal will have to go through a process of evaluation, which is carried out in 4 steps. The first one is the external remote evaluation. What COST does is that we assign 3 independent experts which carry out the evaluation of the quality of your technical annex in order to see how it fits with our indicators. Again, it's very important for you to select those research fields and research areas that your proposal is, because we will match it with the expertise of the evaluators. And of course, closer they are in your field, better it is for your proposal to receive a very fair evaluation. And we make sure to do that because we have a huge number of experts. So that means lots of opportunities to select and match the right experts with the right proposal. After this first section is carried out, then we go to the second step, which is revision and quality checked by review panels. Members of review panels are experts, researchers who are assigned by their countries to check the quality of the evaluations of the individual experts. So they do not reevaluate your proposal, but they check the quality of the evaluation to make sure that it really fits with the standard of a good proposal and a good evaluation, of course. And then the third step is the selection by the scientific committee. Now, as we might have several proposals who have a certain amount of marks, and in our language, it is called the gray zone, and we want to make sure that we select the best ones out of these equal marked, let's say, proposals or around the same marks. Then we go back to what I said about the cost excellence and inclusiveness policy. We evaluate proposals that have the equal amount of marks only for this component. Which of these proposals has set better let's say, narrative on how they will make sure that this action is inclusive and excellent. Based on that, we select also the actions to fill in, let's say, the whole list of the actions that we approve. And then all these actions as a final step are approved by our committee of senior officials. From the application to receiving the results, it's usually 7 to 8 months. So it's really a quick process that you can then get to know if your proposal was successful or not. So again, this is the evaluation criteria. As I mentioned, all proposers will be evaluated on how excellent is their idea in the field and why networking is the right approach to advance with this idea, and what is the impact that they're bringing, and also the advancement of the state of the art beyond what is currently, and also how coherent is their structures and how efficient and effective is the work plan that they have designed. For each of this section, there's a certain range of marks that is awarded to the action. And of course, the ones who score more will then have higher chances of being selected. In a nutshell, to include, make sure to read the announcement for the current call. As I said, the deadline is in October 2025. Read very, very carefully our rules for submission, evaluation, selection, and approval. These are the guidelines. They explain again what I just explained very briefly. Register, have an ECOS profile, start a new proposal, and then download the right technical annex from your ECOS profile. Should you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our help desk, which is dedicated to the open call, and then you can see here their contact, opencall@cost.eu. Lastly, this is my last slide. You can also, besides being a working group member or a grantee for a certain cost action or a management committee member, and besides submitting a new proposal for becoming a potential action chair or the person who drives a new action, you also have an opportunity to become a cost expert. What does that mean? We use experts, or we make use of their expertise in two main directions, either to evaluate new proposals, as I just explained, or to participate in the assessment of the cost actions. All our actions have two moments in which they are assessed for their quality, which is after the second year of their implementation, and we call that progress report 2, and after the final year of their implementation, and we call that the final assessment. So as an expert, you can really become part and provide your contribution in helping us increase not only the quality of what we approve as actions, but also the quality of the ongoing actions. How you can do that? If you have an ECOS profile, then under your scientific expertise tab, you should have a box saying, I agree to become an expert and get contacted by COST to carry out assessments. So make sure to tick that box, and then you will be part of our database of experts, which will provide you with immense opportunities, not only to have your voice heard in what is going out there in research and academia, but also become part of a network of other experts that will help you forge your personal contacts, but also see what is new in your field and what are people proposing as new cost actions. So this is the end of my presentation. As mentioned at the start from my colleague, we will have a Q&A session afterwards. And I see that some of you have already put questions in the chat. We will try to answer all of those. And at the end, after the webinar, of course, we will compile a document with questions and answers, which will be shared with all of you. To continue, I will give the floor to my colleague, Carmencita Malimban, which will go more in depth in what are the networking activities that are funded in cost actions. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you very much, Emiliano. So it's my turn to share my presentation. Good morning, everybody, once again, and thank you for joining us today. So already a lot of information has been given. So I will try to give you ideas on exactly what are the funding and how much is the funding for each of the networking tools that have been presented by my colleagues. So you have heard earlier, for those who've just joined us as well, so these are the networking tools that are available to all researchers and innovators coming from all countries. So we organize events, the meetings and training schools. You have heard of mobility and researchers and innovators through short-term scientific missions or virtual mobility, and also presentations at external conference. So we have inclusiveness target conference grants, young researcher innovator conference grant, and dissemination conference grants. In addition to that, we also support the action in other ways through dissemination and communication products. You have heard this through websites, open access publications, leaflets, flyers, or brochures as examples. And also on the far right is expenses incurred for the benefit of the network. So you see an acronym here is OWERSA. It's actually um, other expenses related to scientific activities. So this can be bank charges related to payments or bank transfers done by the grant holder to make individual payments for its action members, or shipping costs to support the action, or um, consumables in a training school that is also organized by the action. Last is also we have a virtual networking support grant that is awarded to one person in order to be in charge of the non-conventional way of networking through hybrid or online for the action during 1 year. So one person awarded a grant for each year for this network virtual networking support, but it's not mandatory. In addition, we also do financial support for organizations or organizing hosts organizations that set up the meeting or organize the training school. So it's a financial support that is paid to an institutional bank account, and it is paid as a grant. So what is normally covered by the local organizer support? So examples are meeting room rentals, technical equipment rental, refreshments or coffee breaks. Also, we cover cancellation insurance. The amount of the local organizer support is dependent on three factors. One is the format. Is it a face-to-face presential meeting? Is it a hybrid where half is online and the other half face-to-face, or fully virtual? And lastly, the number of unique participants who have signed the attendance list on site or the virtual attendance logs if it's an online or hybrid meeting. I would just like to add as well. So everything that I'm presenting here can be found in the annotated rules, right? So we have this document, and all the rules and guidelines, including amounts, are stipulated there. One of my colleagues are going to post the link where you can find the annotated rules. So we've seen some questions. How are cost action members or ad hoc participants reimbursed through events, meetings, or training schools? Is what we call a travel reimbursement. So what do we um, reimburse? Um, Travel and subsistence through a scheme called daily allowance. The daily allowance will depend on where the meeting is taking place per country, and also the long distance travel, like plane, bus, ferry, use of car, or train, bus, ferry. Yeah. So also, in a training school, trainers and trainees can also have different rates for daily allowance. The daily allowance will not ask for any receipts or invoices, but for sure, for your travel reimbursement expenses, these are paid based on face value. In addition, we also financially support visa applications, visa fees, or exit fees related to travel to and from the meeting place. And also, we encourage travel cancellation insurance as well, because you never know in this day and age. So let's go to grants. Short-term scientific missions, you have heard from my colleague, what is the maximum grant amount that one can apply for is up to 4,000 euros, and it's only paid after the report has been approved. Um, of course, when you apply for a short-term scientific mission grant, it should also be commensurate to the location where you're going, as well as the duration of the mission. As an example, probably a 5-day mission from Belgium to France will not probably justify 4,000 euros, but something less. So this is an example. For sure, for a short-term scientific mission, you have to travel in order to apply for a grant. You have to go to another country to perform the mission. Young Researcher Innovator Grants is a minimum poster presentation in an international conference that is open to any young researcher defined as below 40, affiliated in any of the cost countries. Um, and the grant amount is up to 2,500 that can be applied for, and up to 500 if it's in a virtual setting. Once again, uh, it has to be a meeting or conference not organized by the action. Exceptionally, this can happen within the same country where the person or researcher is affiliated in. Inclusiveness Target Country, ITC conference grants. Affiliation is actually, in order to be eligible, your affiliation should be in an ITC or near neighbor country as well. And in a high-level conference that is open to a high-stake number of external participants and also not organized by the action. The maximum grant is up to maximum 2,500 euros or 500 for a virtual participation. Dissemination conference grants. These are grants offered to any individual that will present the activities or the results of the action in an international conference. Up to 2,500 euros for travel and subsistence, or 500 if it's a virtual participation. And it's strictly oral presentation as well, like the ITC or near neighbor country, like the ITC conference grants. So for virtual mobility grants, this is done in an online setting where a person does not travel. In order to, what's an example? Preparing a survey for the network, preparing some questionnaires, and up to 1,500 euros can be applied for as a grant. So just to let you know that grants, it means no receipts required. It is based on an application done through eCost, and all grants are assessed and studied and evaluated by the cost action members. There's a grant awarding coordinator, and also it's supported by uh, most likely the core group, not just one individual person. Moving forward to dissemination and communication products. So these are what is eligible to be reimbursed in order to support the action in spreading the results, giving awareness, increasing the visibility of the cost action. These are paid based on invoices where VAT is not an eligible amount. So the action must look for other funding sources in order to pay for the VAT for the receipts and invoices for paying these expenses. So that has been my presentation. Once again, everything that I presented is available in the cost annotated rules. Thank you very much.
So now we are giving the floor to an action chair, Ariel Thomas, who's going to give an insight on his action on the offshore fresh grounded water, but also is going to share his experience as a young researcher in the action. Ariel, the floor is yours.
Hi, good day, everyone. Thanks for joining, many of you online. My name is Ariel, and I am currently the chair of Off-Source Cost Action. And so I've titled this talk, Unlocking Opportunities, a Young Researcher's Experience in an EU Cost Network. And over the talk, I hope to share a bit of my own experience and hopefully, encourage some of you to get more involved or to get involved in the cost network. So here we go. Just a brief introduction of myself. If my slide changes. Yes, there we go. So as I said, my name is Ariel. I am currently a Marie Curie Research Fellow at the University of Malta, and I have been there for the last 2 years. And my background is in geophysics and earth sciences, and more specifically now, unconventional water resources. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. For those of you who have some good geography skills, that's in the Southern Caribbean. And some of the things that interest me outside of my research include science communication in the form of talks like this and podcasts as well, like cycling and intersectoral collaboration, which I put there. It sounds a bit nerdy, but it goes well. It synergizes well with my involvement in cost, which I can explain a bit later. So I think to give some context, I just want to briefly introduce sort of the field, because I think in my case, there's a very close synergy between the action and my own research. And so just to give you a little bit of context, just this one slide. So offshore fresh and groundwater refers to water that is stored in the pores of sediments and rock fractures beneath the ocean floor that has a salinity which is lower than that of seawater. So this is relatively fresh pockets of water. And why is this interesting? Well, these systems have been classified as an unconventional groundwater resource, which can fit into an array of solutions to help mitigate water stress, particularly for coastal regions. And so on this map here, it shows sort of a global distribution of where this resource has been found. And so all of those symbols on the map show different places that fresh water has been encountered. So you could appreciate sort of the global relevance here. just a little bit of the background. So one of the leading hypotheses as to why this water exists, where we probably don't expect to find it. The planet has gone through these glacial and interglacial periods. And so during the glacial times, you have a lot of water locked away as ice. And so sea levels are much lower. And so then you have this fresh water going into the continental shelves. And then during the interglacial periods, like we're living through right now, you have rise in the sea level, and then this fresh water becomes trapped offshore. And this is why we think there are these large reservoirs all around the world. And who really cares about this? Well, this map that was part of the same study shows you global water stress. And so the warmer or darker colors represent high water stress. And this is juxtaposed against some of the global estimates or some of the estimated volumes. So the larger circles represent larger volumes of fresh water. So we could see in many places where you have high water stress, you also have these reservoirs. But so this is the sort of general understanding, but there's still a lot of technological gaps in our understanding this Earth system point of view. What is the relevance of it? There's environmental and economical questions as well. And so this is where the action comes in. And so off-source is a cost action that aims at creating this new scientific network that will address if and how offshore fresh and groundwater can be used as an unconventional resource for potable water in coastal regions. And so right now we stand at around 149 or 150 or so members across 38 countries, and we are divided into 5 working groups. So you may have heard a bit of this sort of working group structure of the action. So each working group is sort of like a research unit, as Emiliano said. And so this map just shows our sort of geographic spread, all of the MC member countries you could see here. So we have quite good coverage across the EU cost member states. So I want to talk a little bit about my journey into cost, how I came into the action, because I think along the way there's some nuggets of knowledge to share. So I did my doctorate in natural sciences in 2022. So I would say still pretty freshly minted PhD. And I did this at RWTH Aachen University in Germany at the time. And it was during this time that I got in touch with my professor now, who was the main proposer of the cost action. So that was sort of the initial link. And someone at a conference told me, hey, I should get in touch with this guy. His name is Aaron Mikalev. I should get in touch with this guy because he's doing research, in offshore fresh and groundwater. And so we reached out, we had a chat. And so we sort of developed a sort of network relationship where, we worked together on a couple of things. And towards the end of my PhD, he basically wanted to recruit me to join his institute to move to Malta. And this is where he told me about the action, because I expressed my interest sort of in applied research and science policy research. And he said that the cost action would be a great opportunity for me. He shared with me the proposal at the time. And we also agreed that we would apply for Marie Curie together. So that was it. I made the decision to move to Malta. And shortly before I got there, I found out that the action was granted. And so one of the first, let's say, touch points with cost was the leadership workshop that is hosted. I'm not sure how often they hosted, maybe a couple of times a year, once a year. And they invite the action chairs to sort of tap members of the upcoming actions who they may believe, would be good in leadership roles, or who may be interested in these roles. And so it sort of gathers a few people from a number of new actions. And I thought this was a really, really impactful workshop for me, because it gave me a lot of information about the cost, sort of, what you're getting today, as well as the opportunities that it could open up. And I think this really put me at a bit of an advantage when we got to the action kickoff meeting. So there, I heard some stories from some existing actions and past actions, as well as just met a number of people like myself who didn't have much information, but were eager to network and to step into something new. And so at the kickoff meeting, I was asked to chair one of these little breakout groups. And that led to me being appointed as the working group leader for Working Group 3. Now, what's interesting about this is that Working Group 3 is a utilization working group. And this deals more on the engineering side, water resources, which is not my field at all. This is not my expertise. And so I was at first a bit skeptical, but even after that first meeting, the amount of information I got that was sort of adjacent to my research field, still relevant, I felt like this was a good opportunity to broaden my horizon. And so I took up this challenge. And for the first year of the action, I was the Working Group 3 leader. And then due to some changes with my professor, he had to move, he changed countries. He then sort of tapped me to take over as the action chair. And so this, of course, went through a vote through the MCs. I was quite active in the first year as the Working Group 3 leader with workshops as well as a training school. So I had, sort of hands-on in all different parts of the action. And so now for the past year and a half or so, I've been the chair of the action. And so for the rest of the talk, what I want to do is just touch on these sort of 4 blocks of impact, I would say, on my career that my involvement in the action has led to. And so I will look at networking, career development, training, and relationship. And I think that sort of underpins everything because, you interact with a lot of different people. And I think it's quite, understated benefit of the action. So I'm going to try to talk it up a bit. So on the networking side, I think, expanding your network is directly, or is a direct side effect, let's say, or outcome from being involved in an action. And so this image here on the right shows one of the first workshops that we hosted in OffSource. And so we gathered here 27 people from 17 different countries. And the idea was to have sort of a cross-sectoral discussion on the feasibility of offshore groundwater, bringing in experts from the oil and gas industry who has, historic expertise in this offshore space, hydrogeologists, as well as water treatment engineers. And so here you see me sort of chairing this workshop that we held in Valletta. And there we have 4 panelists. And from the left to the right, we have, someone from Ireland, Saudi Arabia, Norway/Colombia, and Italy. And so we had a quite, diverse group of voices and expertise, I think over 30 something years of expertise. And they were all, contributing and working together. And I think we still have contact with all of these experts. And it led to the production of one of the first technical reports from the action. And, it was quite a proud moment, I would say, that when we sort of published this, we made some prints of it as well. And that has been a really good network expanding experience for me. Again, related to, expanding the network. In the first year, I did a short-term scientific mission myself. And as you probably heard this STSM quite often, I definitely agree and would reiterate what Emiliano said. I think it's one of the most effective tools that we have for the networking. And so in this particular case on the right, I'm giving a talk at the Groundwater Institute. This is in the Israel Institute of Technology. And the way I ended up there is that we started at the sort of start of the action, the first STSM call. We wanted to do a modeling study of a continental shelf that didn't have, an existing model. And we basically went to the action website and we looked through the list of MCs to find, which country can we reach out to and, have a contact. And we landed on Israel. And I reached out to one of the professors there. Her name is Michelle Portman at the Technion, and she was so receptive. She helped us sort of formulate the work plan, made a lot of contacts. And so I spent 10 days there. And I think a part of expanding your network is also getting out of the bubble of your own research. So this was one of the first talks that I would have given that was not, let's say, geoscientists or earth scientists working in my field, but they were mostly engineers in the Groundwater Institute, water engineers, desalination. And I got quite constructive, but as well as critical feedback, on offshore fresh and groundwater. And what it did was it gave me a lot more information, like, okay, these are the areas where, you know, people may require more supporting evidence, or this is where we should develop our understanding a bit better. And I think that kind of insight really comes from getting outside of your bubble. And I think that cost really has a lot of instruments that help you burst that bubble, you know, and talk to people outside of your field. So we got some lab time as well over there. And so this was a really, really enriching trip. And not to mention getting to go to Jerusalem as well to meet with the Geological Society of Israel. So really, really fruitful. And now we're working on a publication directly stemming from that STSM. So a really good, fruitful outcome. And so I would say that a key takeaway is that the cost is not just about attending meetings, but it really facilitates sort of long-term professional relationships across disciplines and countries. And so the institute that hosted me specializes in marine spatial planning, you know, so you really have this cross collaboration that is supported by the cost activities. On the career development side, I want to just look at sort of 3 different roles, all within the action. And so the first was as a STSM host. So you saw earlier that I was a grantee a bit later. So this was late last year. I also hosted an STSM in Malta. And on the left, there's Jared Tchaikovsky. So he came to build this database of infrastructure in the EU, desalination infrastructure, oil and gas, as well as offshore fresh and groundwater sites. What I thought is that in the field, there's a lot of there's a suggestion that offshore freshwater can be used as feed water for desalination. And I thought, let's go there and see what this technology is like. I've never been to a plant myself. And so we arranged a site visit. There you see the 2 of us talking with the 2 engineers, and they gave us sort of a presentation about the technology that they use. They were quite excited about our research, and I shared a bit about the action, and then they also joined. So I think this was a really good experience because, again, getting out of that bubble and getting more information. So now I feel like I have a much more holistic understanding of, okay, this is the very technical side of the research, but downstream, these are the partners that need to be involved. And I think through the action, I now have a much better oversight of all of the potential parts. Again, as the working group leader, I think I touched on this a bit before. This workshop was quite impactful, I think, because it allows you to exercise some skills. Of course, I had a really good supporting team. Our grant manager, Heba, is excellent. And we had support from the panel members as well in putting this whole thing together, support from the conference unit at the University of Malta. But, you know, as the coordinator of the workshop, I think it allowed me to develop a lot of skills outside of just technical research and publishing, which, you know, typically in academia, you could sort of get pigeonholed into doing just these things. And by being involved in the cost, you know, you get to flex some other muscles. And I think depending on your long-term career goals as well, having something like, you know, coordinating workshops, international workshops or training schools gives your resume some depth, you know, so that you're not just, I don't know, publishing academic papers that 12 people are going to read and 2 people are going to cite. So I think it really sort of broadens the scope of your skill set. And then finally, as the action chair, I think this has been, you know, a bit more administrative work. Again, really good support from the team. But one of the activities I think that sort of came from this, apart from, you know, looks good on a resume, is we have been, I was sort of invited to take part in a JPI Ocean scoping workshop. JPI is Joint Programming Initiatives, and it's another sort of EU levels funding body, but they fund projects, research projects. And so a scoping committee is basically a group of experts that they gather to advise the board on what kind of grant calls they should prepare and if they should have a call in a particular field. And so we're doing the scoping workshop on offshore fresh and groundwater. And so I had the chance to go there, share a bit of the work that the action is doing, because of course they don't want to, you know, double or reinvent the wheel, let's say. And so you see me there in this room. Behind me is actually the vice chair, this Claudia Bertoni. And then opposite here, this is Catherine Schwalenberg, and she is actually the working group 2 leader at OffSource. And then we have a few other experts around. And so it's not just, being the chair, but being involved in the action as well, I think puts you in rooms that you may not have had the opportunity to be in otherwise. And I think that's a really excellent opportunity to sort of network and get into sort of different activities that help give you just a broader impact in your career. And then the training. I think the training is really excellent. We've had 2 training schools and we're planning a 3rd one. For the first one here, we did it in Utrecht University. And I was one of the instructors for this. This is sort of the happy group that you see here in one of the rare sunny days in the Netherlands. And this was a really good opportunity because I like teaching, but I don't like grading papers. And so training schools are great because they're modular, they're short, a few days, you deliver some interesting content, you could have some working time as well. And we had really, really great feedback from this. We've had follow-up workshops because people realize that we get a lot done when we come together, cut aside some time to actually collaborate and work together. And the training schools and the workshops provide really, really good tools for doing that. You might want to collaborate with someone, but you both have your own projects and you can't really find the time. We tend to use the workshops to bring people together so you could cut out that time to actually work and collaborate. And so I think that's a really, really excellent networking tool. And so I think COST empowers young researchers with leadership roles quite early in their career. As you see, I've almost about 2.5 years after my PhD, and I've been able to be involved in a lot of different things through the action. And so it's really sort of accelerated things. And finally, relationship building. As I said, it's just a few snapshots that I pulled together from, some post-meeting dinners, and we've had people go on hikes after the STSM in Norway, I believe. And I think, within the network, you already have a shared research interest. And so it's great when you meet people with shared personal interest as well. Then you could sort of, have some friendships develop and have some lasting relationship and networking as well. So my key takeaways, starting from the bottom, I would say networking and relationship building is a real game changer. COST is absolutely an accelerator for young researchers. Your network, can really, really grow in a short time. Leadership opportunities can come quite early, if you step up to take that responsibility. And I believe that career growth is definitely faster with COST. So yeah, those it's a bit of my experience so far. That brings me to the end of my talk. I think I'm right at 20 minutes. So I think I did well. So maybe they invite me back next time. Thanks for listening. Here you could see the website of the action, as well as if you would like to connect directly with me, you could scan this QR code on LinkedIn. I'm Ariel Thomas. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ariel, for this very interesting presentation and to have brought us through your journey at COS and through your action. So now I'm welcoming again my colleagues in order to pick up a few questions. So during the COS Info Day and all the presentation, we try to answer to your question the most we could. But now maybe we can answer a few extra questions that you have asked in the chat. I have a question about local organizer support. Where can I find more information about local organizer support? Maybe Kamencita, you can answer this question.
So thank you. Once again, it's in the annotated rules. My colleagues have actually put the link on the chat, right? And we will do it again. So there is a specific annex in the annotated rules solely describing what are eligible under local organizer support, including the corresponding grant that is available if, for example, you have maximum 25 people, and it's a one-day meeting. I'll give an example on the table. So a local organizer can claim up to 1,000 euros as a local organizer support for a face-to-face meeting, so on and so forth. So there, where to find it? It's in the annotated rules.
Thank you. There is a question for Ariel also, whether you have already started your MSCA fellowship and if you are in both projects in the cost action and your MSCA already. And do you suggest an experience in a cost action for future MSCA postdoc candidates? So maybe you need to see the connection between the cost action and future also research opportunities.
Yeah, I can briefly comment on this. Yes, I am. So I am actually right now in the Netherlands as part of a research visit for my Marie Curie. I think one of the key things, and that's why I mentioned it a bit early, is that my action is very closely related to my research. And so there's a lot of synergy in between the activities that I do for the action and some of the activities that I need to do for my research anyway. And I think the key to maximize your benefit from cost is to really find that synergy, get involved in a working group where you could go on an STSM that could feed back into your research as well as the actions deliverables. So I think, yeah, 100% it could be relevant for any postdoc fellowship. I think it could be really relevant because, again, you could sort of use the instruments like STSMs for collaborative research as well that achieves deliverables for the action as well as for your own project. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it.
Thank you, Ariel. Maybe another question. Is there a recommended tool or evaluation method to match the scientists from the targeted inclusiveness country with other non-inclusiveness target country? Maybe Emiliano on this one?
Yes, so there is no measurement as such, but because of the fact that cost actions are open and inclusive, one of the criteria that we have in place, as I mentioned, is that we have you should have at least 50% of secondary proposers from inclusiveness target countries. That ensures a bit that the participation in the action is balanced. But also throughout the action activities, we encourage actions strongly to keep this balance as such in order to provide a better support to the researchers who need it.
Thank you, Emiliano. We are getting close to our presentation and to our info day. Maybe we can just take a last question. What if my university contract ends during the time of a funded action and I am the main proposer? So maybe I can answer to this one. This is not a problem as such, as during the lifetime of the project, you can change affiliation. So it's possible that you change affiliation as long as you still have an affiliation to a legal entity, and depending also on the country of affiliation. So if it's the main proposer, it should be still a requirement that you are from a country which can apply as a main proposer for the action. Let me just... Okay. My colleagues say that we can still continue a bit for a few extra minutes to see for to answer other questions. Let me take
If I
a
might
yeah.
explain a question that I saw reoccurring and coming up, you don't need to submit a budget plan with your proposal for cost because, as I mentioned, the budget is an amount that we award to the actions. So it does not have to be part of the proposal. You only need to have the technical annex filled in and all the other sections that I mentioned in my presentation. So have a network of proposers that fulfills the criteria and then a technical annex which is anonymous. And anonymity is very, very important. And I also read a question about why it is important, because we have we engage external experts as evaluators. So we need to make sure that these people do not know who is behind that proposal, so that it does not have any impact in the quality of their evaluation.
There is another question. For someone who has been accepted as a working group member by a management committee for an action, what are the next steps to be taken? So maybe Emiliano, yeah.
Yes, so if you have been accepted as a working group member, you should have received a notification from eCost, which is automatic at the moment in which the action accepts new applications. And then you should see yourself appearing in the working group page of the action on COST website. As I mentioned, each action has a page with the list of the working group members, and you can expect to be invited to working group meetings or other networking activities that this action is implementing. So if you don't hear from the action chair for a long time, feel free to drop them an email and ask about the activities and how you can engage better.
Thank you, Emiliano. There is a question also about the reimbursement. Do we have pre-finance networking activities? Maybe, yeah. Maybe Kamansita.
Well, the thing is, cost operates on the basis of travel of reimbursement, meaning only after the activity has taken place.
Thank you. So there is another question about Ariel. Apparently, your presentation was really inspiring, and some people would like already to join your next training school. Is it possible?
Yeah, it should be possible. The next training school is about seismic methods and control source electromagnetic. So I don't know how applicable it might be for a broader audience, but yeah, they could on the website, I'm sure they could find the actions called off source, and they will have all the information about upcoming training schools and so on. We're still in the planning, but it'll be a bit later this year.
Thank you. There is a question about submitting a new proposal, whether there is a need to have partners from different countries. Yes, this is indeed a requirement. For each new proposal, there is a need to have partners from at least 7 countries, and half of them needs to come from inclusiveness target country. This is an eligibility criteria, so this criteria needs to be fulfilled. I'm looking for other questions. So we got already also a few times the questions. So we are going to compile the questions and the answer. We will put it on the COST event webpage. It will take us couple of days, so please be a bit patient. And also the slides will be also available on the COST event webpage, and there will be also the link to the recording. And the questions like which has been asked in YouTube, we will put also in the Q&A document, so you will see then the answers. So we got also a few questions about the profile of the partners in a cost action. So again, and I think it's really important to highlight it, cost is open not only to academia and research, but also to NGOs and private companies and international organizations. So as long as you have an affiliation to one of those, you as an individual, you can participate to an action. On top, for some topics, it's really valuable to have a connection with the private sector, with the international organization, with NGOs. So all those organizations are really welcome to participate in a cost action and even at the proposal stage. From my colleagues, do you see any other topics that we have some question about that would be nice to cover it in a general way?
Just a quick answer to one of the questions that stated if you need to be a working group member in order to apply for the different grants. Not necessarily. If you are a working group member of that action, it means that you have the information quicker on the deadlines for the grants, and also you have a better understanding on what the action is about. But you can also apply as not being a member of the action. As I said, if you will be eligible to get financial support for the grants, on your ECOS profile in the grants application, you will see all the opportunities that you can apply for the grants. But it is only done in specific cost actions. And that information you can only find on the actions webpage or their social media about the timelines, the amount of the grants, and number of grants to be awarded.
Thank you, Emiliano, for that clarification. We got also, maybe I can take up a last question, because I see that the number of participants is decreasing. So I believe that they need to leave. Regarding if the contract finishes during the lifetime of an action, and if you are a management committee member, then you have to contact your cost national coordinator to see whether it's possible still that you represent your country, or if there is a need to have then a change of the management committee member. I think we are getting closer to the end of this webinar. We hope that you had all the necessary information, and that you had a chance to know more about cost, and that you will be inspired to participate then in one of the action. Before leaving you, I just wanted to mention that you are really welcome to subscribe to the COST newsletter, because it's a very good way to have the latest information about what is ongoing at COST, but also regarding the action which are put it in spotlight. You can have lots of valuable information in order to eventually be aware of what is ongoing. We are quite also active on the social media, so it can be also a very good channel to be up to date. And as I mentioned, the webinar is recorded. It will be made available with the slide on the COST event webpage, and we will take care of all the Q&A in there. Some of you in the coming days, we also receive a feedback survey to know your feeling about this webinar, to know if there are anything that we can do in a different way. So we will really appreciate if you can take up just 2 minutes of your time to provide us some feedback. So yeah, the streaming, I've heard it's already available on YouTube, so that's good. We would like to thank you very much again for your time, for your attendance to this info day. We hope that you really had all the necessary information to know whether this program could be beneficial for you, and that we hope that you will be joining us very soon to one of our action or in a different way. Thank you very much to everyone, and see you next year.